The moment he opened his eyes, a machete swung down towards him. The woman beside him bolted for the door, but the man took his sweet time getting dressed like he had eyes in the back of his head. No matter how viciously the attacker swung, not a scratch touched him. Seeing his opponent draw a dagger, Roy chuckled. His formidable combat skills were one thing, but more importantly, Roy knew his enemy's moves even with his eyes closed. He wasn't in a rush to deal with this low-level thug, just took a sip of his coffee and took him down with effortless grace. After all, based on past experience, the assassination chopper should already be hovering outside the window. Believe it or not, dealing with these assassins, Roy could even predict the trajectory of bullets fired from a minigun.
Oh, they think you're me!
Just like that, Roy strolled leisurely towards the sofa. Ignoring the helicopter relentlessly firing behind him, Roy's focus was solely on the photo of his wife. Roy didn't possess the ability to see the future. His calm demeanor came from reliving this day countless times. Jumping out this window like before, he had already been crushed by the delivery truck below 22 times. Only now, he had memorized every detail of the earlier stages, snatching the Dodge sports car from the same man. Roy continued his escape. The so-called assassins initiated a fatal collision with Roy. Drifting and swerving through the streets, he thought he might reach the next stage, only to be T-boned violently. Roy was flung into a bus, surviving mere seconds before meeting his end. But it didn't matter. Roy could respawn infinitely. Of course, if he was in a bad mood, he could even suicide to restart. Right now, Roy had no idea why he possessed this infinite respawn ability, nor why people were constantly trying to kill him, or even how they kept finding him. In previous attempts, Roy never knew who the next enemy would be or where they'd come from. He died at least 10 times on the same stage. Among them was an assassin named Guanine, swift and bloodless, her blade always seeking the neck, a relatively quick end for Roy. As for this dwarf assassin, his methods were even more brutal and direct.
What's up, pretty boy?
Weirdo dwarf, what are you doing?
Oh, I don't like that attitude.
Compared to swift deaths, Roy had also endured versions involving prolonged suffering. Of course, Roy wasn't some clueless rookie. He could handle the standard levels all on his own.
Managed to kill them. But it doesn't matter. They always find me.
In this repetitive death game, the only person Roy could think of who might know the truth was his wife, Gemma. During one attempt, Roy used a spare moment to call Gemma, only to learn from her boss that Gemma had broken her neck and died. Before Roy could process this news, he was blown to pieces by 2 assassins behind him. This incident made Roy realize Gemma might have been framed. Therefore, Roy had to survive long enough during his attempts, previously dying repeatedly in the bus. This time Roy timed it perfectly, executing a drift, a sharp turn, and a stylish U-turn under heavy fire to dodge it. But to survive, he had to deal with the 2 assassins tailing him. Seeing conventional weapons fail, the assassins immediately switched to heavy artillery. Roy swiftly drove into an abandoned factory, with the killers closing in relentlessly. Frustrated by their inability to hit him, one assassin took a shortcut, forcing a head-on collision, expecting an easy kill, but instead giving Roy the chance to strike back. After the fight, Roy kicked back for a bit at a bar to catch his breath. 12:47 marked his personal best across nearly 200 attempts. Just like always, the moment the clock struck, Roy stopped resisting and turned around, waiting for death.
I have never lived past 12:47 p.m. They always get me. Bunch of assholes. When every day ends like this.
The day before the loop began, Roy had visited Gemma at her company, a retired Special Forces soldier. Roy's lifelong service had shattered his marriage. His son Joe had never met him, now discharged. Roy wanted a job at Gemma's company and to make up for lost time, but Gemma was secretive, refusing to discuss her work, only warning that mishandling the machine behind her could end time and space, dooming Earth. Their every move was monitored by the boss, worried that Gemma might spill the beans. The boss sent Brett to deliver a warning. Running out of time after Brett left, Gemma suddenly snipped a lock of Roy's hair and mentioned mailing him a book. As he left, she told him to remember the name Osiris. Baffled, Roy went to a bar and met a beautiful dentist. While she was in the restroom, Gemma called Roy, confessing she'd done something reckless and urging him to do what he must. Unbeknownst to them, the boss heard everything. Gemma gave no details, and clueless Roy took the dentist home. The next morning, Roy woke up trapped in the death loop. After 141 deaths, he finally remembered Gemma's envelope. The early stages repeated, fleeing while reading the book for clues. Distracted, he died in the bus crash again. No matter, restart. Roy blazed through the early levels and now had a plan: drive first, read later, one slick drift and a sharp turn to dodge an oncoming bus. Then he weaved through a barrage of non-stop explosions, spotting a happy button under the steering wheel. He hit it, rocketing forward and losing his pursuers. He hid out in an underground playground, poring over the book. Its passages about Osiris's myths baffled Roy, who lacked code-breaking skills. Noticing Joe nearby, Roy followed him into the arcade, where Joe focused on a game. Joe had heard about Roy from his mother but had no idea he was his father. Roy cherished this moment, wanting more time with Joe. Screens glitched wherever they walked. Leaving the arcade at 12:53 minutes past his previous record, Roy saw the same glitches and realized he'd been tracked. Being underground had jammed the signal, extending his survival. Now surfaced, assassins swarmed the streets. Roy didn't resist, knowing the cause. He could always restart.
I'm your father.
After dying, Roy instantly returned to the starting point to begin anew. Having cleared the earlier stages, he went to his regular diner and learned through inquiry that the most effective way to implant a tracker was via dental work. A stunned Roy realized he had brought this upon himself. The so-called beautiful dentist had deliberately approached him, with Bear standing nearby at the time. Wasting no time, Roy grabbed pliers and wrenched out multiple teeth. Unsurprisingly, the tracker was embedded there.
Roy, someone paid a lot of money to keep track of you.
They did?
Yeah, a whole lot. I've never...
I'll see you soon, Dave.
Upon waking again, Roy dodged the machete and immediately apprehended the fleeing dentist, confirming from her that his wife's boss was behind the surveillance. This time, he precisely removed the implanted tracker. Just as assassins arrived at the discarded tooth's location, Roy emerged behind them with a gun, relieved one assassin of his pistol, and wordlessly took him down.
Oh, shoot.
Roy repaid each assassin with their signature methods of execution. He herded all the assassins into a warehouse and used the dwarf's explosives to incinerate them all. After eliminating every assassin, Roy stormed the company headquarters.
That was a good plan.
On his next attempt, he drove straight into the company, literally flying in with his car. Inside, the guards were firing wildly in all directions. Roy just chuckled and leapt right in.
I can do this all day, Dick.
Regrouping for another try, this time Roy ambushed an assassin, used his credentials to infiltrate the building, and cleared the elevator guards, only to face certain death upon exiting.
Never say die.
Since he could respawn infinitely, he restarted once more, but this time, the elevator opened to a hail of bullets. Insert coin to respawn. Continue the mission. With everything ready, the elevator doors slid open. Roy took out the regular guards and stepped into the boss's office, only to find the last thing he expected, the female assassin. First attempt, his pistol jammed predictably. Roy got impaled. Second attempt, she dodged every bullet. third attempt, combined assault with machine gun and pistol proved utterly futile. Repeated failures showed brute force was hopeless, so Roy sought Swordsmaster Daiphone, with only one lesson per death cycle. Training spanned from attempt 158 to 198. Roy's persistence finally earned Daifeng's approval. On the 200th try, Roy set down his guns and pulled a longsword from the wall. The assassin assumed Roy surrendered in this loop. Only Roy retained memories. To others, each encounter was new, so she scoffed at his abandonment of firearms. Within seconds of crossing blades, she realized she was hopelessly outmatched. Just after defeating her, Bear charged and wielding a rifle. Roy ducked behind a pillar as bullets ricocheted, while Bear recklessly advanced unprepared for Roy's newfound bullet-defying skills. He didn't expect to be taken out by Roy on the spot the very next second.
I smell muffins. Do you smell muffins? Now I'm blind.
Now only the boss remained, and after a brief solo duel, the boss, reaching for a gun, was nailed to the ground by Roy's sword. Reflecting on Roy's abilities, the boss deduced that Gemma had placed Roy into the Spindle and completed the experiment. The original plan was for the boss to enter the Spindle and use infinite respawns to enforce global dictatorship, but now Roy was the one inside, and he planned to kill the boss. Facing death, the boss remained calm, informing Roy his son Joe was in danger. After a fierce slash, Roy rushed to the arcade, but was too late. Joe was already a lifeless body. As Roy was overcome with grief, an explosion erupted behind him. Waking up again, Roy realized, if activity inside the Spindle went beyond a single day, the entire world would be destroyed in a massive explosion wiped into nothingness. So what if he killed the boss? If he didn't break free from the Spindle, everyone would die. Killing the boss would be meaningless. Therefore, after clearing the earlier stages, Roy devoted his remaining time to Joe. They played games together, visited the park, and finally sat on a bench, awaiting the apocalypse together, believing this cycle would repeat endlessly. A casual remark from Joe changed everything. He mentioned receiving a call from his mother that morning. Roy checked the phone. The call log showed 7:03 a.m. This meant if Roy cleared the stages fast enough, he could save Gemma. He stormed the company again, firing rapidly to take down Bear and the boss, only to turn and find Gemma had already met her end. Calculating the time, he had only 14 minutes from waking up to Gemma's death. Okay, restart. This time, after dispatching the initial thug, Roy leaped directly onto the helicopter, eliminated the gunner, and forced the pilot to fly straight to the boss's tower. He arrived so early that none of the assassins had even mobilized. Seeing their locations on the monitors, Roy prepared to eliminate them all at once.
Maybe too long.
After clearing these NPCs, Roy charged towards Gemma's lab, cutting down anyone in his path. His extensive experience meant even without repetition, he handled it with ease. This speedrun succeeded. He saved Gemma, and this exact moment was Gemma's gamble. For Gemma, this spanned only 2 days. Yesterday, she took Roy's hair, placed it into the Spindle, used his infinite rebirth power to eliminate the boss she couldn't escape, then had Roy save her from imminent death, before finally shutting down the Spindle. That was the Osiris plan. Now that the boss was dead, stopping the Spindle was the only way to prevent global annihilation. But Roy, as a crucial component, couldn't exit once inside. For Gemma and Joe, he didn't hesitate, stepping resolutely into the device. And just like that, the man who sacrificed his family for his country in the first half of his life, gave up everything for his family in the second. The movie ends here,